My PD3 placement was at Comanche ISD. It spanned from January 22nd to April 18th. My placement began at H.R. Jeffries Junior High and ended at Comanche Elementary. The junior high demographics consisted of 277 students, 98 in 6th grade, 96 in 7th grade, 83 in 8th grade, with 48% of these students being Hispanic, 48% white, 1% American Indian, 0.4% Asian, and 3% two or more races. The student body was 60% economically disadvantaged, 12% of those English learners, 58% at risk. There were 30 students with disabilities, 73% of which were intellectual. The elementary demographics consisted of 658 students, 44 in pre-K, 104 in kindergarten, 113 in first grade, 91 in second grade, 92 in third grade, 111 in fourth grade, and 99 in fifth grade. 51% of these students were Hispanic, 48% white, 0.3% American Indian, and 1% two or more races. 67% of these students were considered economically disadvantaged, 20% English learners, 56% at risk, 79 students with disabilities. 35% of these were intellectual, 53% physical, and 6% behavioral. Knowledge and skills from within my discipline. I implemented skills and knowledge acquired from Knies 3355 and 3365 elementary and secondary physical education by successfully planning and delivering lesson plans to each campus. I also used classroom management skills learned from these courses to keep the students in line and on task. I used accommodating and adapting skills from Knies 3380, adapted physical education, to adapt activities at the elementary campus for students with physical disabilities. I created a capture the flag type game and set up an extra course for a side game to take place inside and during the main game, so that the students with disabilities in the class would not be off to the side by themselves, but rather in the middle of it all. From Knies 3390, kinesiology, I implemented center of gravity, line of gravity, base of support, and kinetic chain content. This content was delivered at the junior high campus while teaching correct layup and free throw forms in basketball and correct passing, throwing, catching, and stances in football. Knowledge and skills from core curriculum. From Education 3320, Understanding Learners, I grouped students heterogeneously. Any teacher can tell you students want to be with their group of friends. Although, if this is allowed, the groups will be unequal and unfair. There will be a strong group and many weak groups. I split the classes in different ways. One day by favorite colors, another day by birth months, and yet another day by color of shirt. This way the students could not plan or scheme up a way to group themselves. I implemented Education 4331, Applications of Effective Teaching Practices skills, by making the activities authentic. I did this during the closure of the classes. For example, at the end of my junior high micro teach, which was a mixture of kickball and dodgeball, I asked the students what they could take from the game into real life. After ample wait time and only receiving a few moans and groans, I explained that just like in a PE game, the people around you have different talents and skills. Some will be good at things you are not, and others will be weaker at things than you, just like throwing and catching in the game. After that, voluntary answers began to free flow. It was a pat myself on the back moment. From EDSP 4361, Models of Instruction, I made accommodations for students with disabilities, physical, intellectual, emotional, or behavioral. At the junior high, during the kickball dodgeball game, I had a student come up to me with tears in their eyes, asking me not to make them play. I responded by saying, "You need to be a part of this somehow. How about you help me?" He was all for it, and before I knew it, this normally shy student was all smiles and leading the game as the teacher. It was apparent he was ecstatic to be the center of attention, maybe for the first time in a while. From outside academics, I implemented knowledge and skills that I have acquired throughout my life experiences as a substitute teacher, youth sports coach, and as a parent. With these skills, I feel like I have an advantage over my classmates. As a teacher, you need to clearly communicate, have patience, and still be in control. These skills from outside academics make these tasks easier for me than they may be for other pre-teachers new to being the adult in the room. Connecting it all together. My field placement was only successfully completed because I was able to draw knowledge and skills from my experiences within my discipline, core curriculum, and even from outside academics. Implementing the skills I acquired from my kinesiology classes in regard to lesson planning and delivery, grouping students and accommodating for students with disabilities, and using my prior experiences as a parent, youth sports coach, and substitute teacher to communicate with students and keep calm during the chaos a physical education classroom can evolve into. I continue to have personal biases and opinions like we all do, but my field experience at Comanche ISD has altered my global awareness in 5 specific areas: academic, political, social, cultural, and economic. Academically, I have been under the impression that all schools place the same amount of importance on academics, mainly to receive state or government funding. I will admit I was wrong. At the junior high campus, the administration has implemented a study time they call tutorials. This time is used to ensure that students are not merely memorizing the material, but rather learning the content. All the students from 6th through 8th grade gather in the gymnasium. The students who are caught up with their studies use this time as a break. The other students are called into the classrooms of the content area they are lacking in understanding. Though it is only an extra 30 minutes per day, the students seem to be progressing towards their content mastery. Academics are placed at a higher priority at Comanche ISD than any other school I have experience at. Politically, I assumed, being a smaller Texas town in the country, that Comanche was made up mostly of conservative Republicans who hunt, fish, farm, and are chasing the American dream of working for their fortune. I was shocked to learn a very high number of the parents of Comanche ISD students receive assistance from the government. While there are parents who work and provide, according to a few teachers, there are more parents who do not work at all. These parents have told the teachers they do not plan to work and are only in Comanche because there are more free programs offered to them there. This is something I'm not accustomed to. I know there are people that need help and they should get it, but I find it hard to swallow the fact that some adults choose not to work knowing the government will take care of them. Socially, I assumed cliques were present in all schools, especially junior high, where each clique defends their own and attempts to cause problems for the other cliques. H.R. Jeffries was an exception. Though separate cliques were present, all the students worked together and even assisted each other, whether in the same clique or otherwise. This testifies to the social atmosphere the teachers and administration have created at this school, and it begins at the elementary. Culturally, I was in complete culture shock at Comanche ISD. I began the field experience expecting to walk into halls of chaos, so to speak, like from a movie. Students being disrespectful to teachers and other students. However, it was quite the opposite. The campuses were not chaotic nor disrespectful. The teachers and other adults were respected, and the majority of the students responded with yes sir or no ma'am. There were a few yeps and nopes on the junior high campus, but not anywhere close to what I assumed I would hear. The students respected and seemed to genuinely care for each other. This experience is a complete opposite from what I assumed I would have, especially at a junior high. Economically, I realize each town in Texas has multiple levels of socio-economical tiers. I also realize some towns may be leaning more to one side or the other of these tiers. Although in my short experience in education, Comanche ISD has a shocking amount of economically disadvantaged students. I did not notice much of a difference on the junior high campus. However, the elementary campus was astonishingly unbalanced. The condition of the clothes worn by students was eye-opening, to say the least. Some in nicer clothes than most adults I know, and some in the same torn and dirty clothes for days at a time. A few students seemed to not wear the same thing twice, while others had taped up shoes, probably handed down from an older sibling or cousin, pants hand-me-down, shirts hand-me-down, or bought from a thrift shop. Though I noticed the differences in economic status of the students in my field experience, the students did not seem to notice. It might be the difference in age or generation between myself and them, or it could be just the way I think. These areas of global awareness have also made it clear to me that education is so much more than teaching. Just as educators at Comanche ISD have done, teachers have to be mindful of aspects other than academics, like political, social, cultural, or economical aspects. As educators, I believe it is our responsibility to teach our students more than content to pass tests. I believe the educators and parents at Comanche ISD have succeeded in doing so by teaching their students to see their peers as people, not as the material items they wear, the jobs their parents have, or the group of friends they gather with. Teaching is so much more than content objectives. We need to show compassion to all of our students, even if their biases, beliefs, and opinions do not match our own. By modeling such compassion, we will also be teaching by example. We could be the one positive part of a student's life, or the one honest adult in a student's life. Most educators have experienced this, and it's why they teach. It's why I teach. I had a science teacher in freshman biology who completely changed my outlook on life. We will call him Coach M. He held me after class one day and began to tell me what I needed to hear rather than what I wanted to hear. It didn't take long for me to realize just how true Coach M's words were to me. I decided that day to be an educator. Shamefully, I'll admit I began the journey wanting to help at least one student. I now realize that I could help every student I see.